So we'll begin with Mr. Howley. I appreciate your patience because I know that you've been waiting since the beginning, which was an hour and a half ago.
It's a privilege. Thank you.
So proceed.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for having me. I wanted to give some thoughts for a few minutes up here about the Citizen Review Panel, which is supposed to protect children here in Washington, D.C., and oversee the D.C. form of Child Protective Services, which is known as CFSA. CFSA has recently had a fiscal year budget proposal of $222.4 million. And the Citizen Review Panel obviously has a lot of importance in trying to hold this very powerful agency accountable. In the time that Mr. Andy Miller, who I don't know, has been on the Citizen Review Panel, they've done some good things in terms of prioritizing reunification of families and family visit time. But I must say to Mr. Miller and to everyone who's following this issue in D.C. that I believe that this panel must go much further in order to hold what I believe is a very corrupt CFSA agency accountable. Since the adoption and Safe Families Act of 1997, which is a federal law, you have seen a culture of collectivist child raising being pushed with for-profit incentives across the United States of America in order to take poor, economically disadvantaged children out of their own family homes and put them into foster care. The mechanism for this is Title IV Social Security money, which comes from the federal taxpayers, and it's given to states, including the District of Columbia, when children are adopted out of foster care. Thus, it creates financial incentives to continuously take kids out of their homes and put them into foster care because so much money gets made. Nationally, you are seeing major problems stemming from this since 1997. In Arizona, many missing children in the system has sparked a political crisis. In New Mexico, the Attorney General has had to open an investigation into the death of children in foster care. And in California, which is probably the worst in the country for this, there are no Amber Alerts that get issued when foster care children go missing. They're all labeled as runaways, and they go off oftentimes with their pimps as part of child sex trafficking networks, and that is true. Nationwide, about 25% of graduating foster care kids end up in the criminal justice system within 2 years of aging out of the system. And obviously that you see that in D.C. as well, which contributes to the crime problem that is in the national headlines, whatever you may think of that issue. Nationwide, about 60% of child sex trafficking victims are current or recent foster care kids. And all over the place, you can see headlines of foster parents who have been found to be pedophiles or involved in child sex trafficking. According to a federal study in 2022, which surveyed Washington, D.C. and elsewhere, 40% of current or recent foster kids said that they had been trafficked. 79% of those who said they had been trafficked said that it happened while in foster care. D.C. has not done enough to try to get away from the tactics that all over the country are causing these kinds of problems. For instance, in many places across the country, racist predictive analytics technology programs are used to try to determine whether or not parents will be good parents or not before they ever even do anything. It's like future crime, like the movie Minority Report, if you may have seen it, predicting whether or not they're going to be good parents, which is all based on their income and obviously disproportionately negatively impacts low-income black families. In D.C., where social workers are getting trained by AI, an AI program called Listen, L-Y-S-S-N, obviously the automation of this is extremely horrifying because you're deleting human judgment from something that is an extremely important thing about what, where a child is going to live or not. And so we owe it to the more than 500 kids in D.C. foster care, the more than 300,000 nationwide, in order to make sure that they're being taken care of, not to mention the millions who have gone through the system and fallen through the cracks, become homeless or drug addicted, et cetera, incarcerated. We also know that there are many politically motivated calls that come into CPS in order to hurt people's political opponents. Whatever your views may be, we know that the group Antifa on the left wing has done this toward people on the right wing, and there are other examples of it as well. D.C. Public Schools makes nearly half of the CPS calls in the city, and oftentimes that's driven by truancy. There are certain requirements that they have to meet But if you look at it, they are obviously not looking at these things on a case-by-case basis. If a kid is engaging in truancy, oftentimes taking him out of his home and putting him into the system is not going to make the problem any better. During the coronavirus, and this is one of the most important things I have to say here, numerous families here in Washington, D.C. got reported to CFSA, either through the school or for somebody else, for educational neglect, simply because they chose and they thought that they were entitled to be able to give their kids virtual learning so they wouldn't have to go into the classroom. These parents were then reported to CFSA, which has a requirement to open up a case on all of these different reports. So there are so many kids that are getting lost in the system who don't need to be in the system in the first place. So I would urge Mr. Miller and the other people on the Citizen Review panel to hold CFSA accountable not only for their incompetence when it comes to protecting kids who need help, who don't, when they don't follow through on reports. That's one issue, but also for their complicity in a system which I believe is motivated by profit, which creates so many unnecessary cases of kids being taken away from their families, put into the system, not being reunified, getting lost in the bureaucracy of the system, and then having horrible life outcomes as a result of that, not to mention the devastation that that does to the parents and the families. So I urge the Citizen Review panel to go harder on this issue at holding this beleaguered agency accountable, and I hope that Mr. Miller will make that a priority. Aside from that, I have no further judgment on whether or not he should be on the panel, but I think that the panel does some good things, and I hope that they go harder. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hawley. I will have some questions for you, so let me get to the other witness first. William Jordan.